Did you ever trust someone so completely that you would give them everything, only to find out they were hiding it from you? That is exactly what happened in one of the most shocking, jaw-dropping scandals to ever hit the British royal family. At the heart of this storm is a woman whose face many of you know and whose persona the world has long seen as nurturing, kind, and above reproach. Doria Ragland, mother of Meghan Markle. But behind the warm smile and motherly advice, police now claim there is a secret involving millions of pounds, a carefully orchestrated scheme, and a betrayal that could rock the monarchy to its core. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Imagine a calm, seemingly ordinary day in a quiet corner of London. The streets are peaceful, the press is busy with the usual royal updates, and King Charles believes the finances of his family are secure, carefully audited, and beyond reproach. Yet, unbeknownst to him, a labyrinth of financial deception has been quietly woven, hiding money in ways that could make even seasoned investigators shake their heads. The revelations are staggering, but it is only the beginning. Sources tell us that what began as a simple family arrangement, an elder care company, purportedly set up to support charitable initiatives, quickly transformed into a covert mechanism for hiding wealth. At first glance, the company seemed innocent enough. A caring, socially responsible venture that would provide services to the elderly, something that would garner admiration from the public and the crown alike. But what was happening behind closed doors was anything but charitable. The company, according to insider reports, became a conduit for large sums of money, moving from one account to another, often under the radar of traditional oversight, seemingly orchestrated by Doria herself. You might be asking yourself, why would someone do this? How does a mother, a figure many regard as nurturing, get involved in what police are now describing as a scheme to hide money from the king? And why would Meghan Markle, her own daughter, allegedly play a pivotal role in this covert financial ballet? The answers, as you will soon discover, are not only shocking but deeply intertwined with family dynamics, ambition, and a calculated desire for power and independence. The investigation began quietly. A few small discrepancies noticed in the accounting of the elder care company sparked curiosity among internal auditors. It wasn't immediately clear whether this was a simple clerical error or the tip of something far more sinister. But as forensic accountants dug deeper, the trail led straight to Doria Ragland. Every unusual transfer, every oddly named account, every complex web of shell entities pointed to a system that had been meticulously engineered. And at the center of it all, police claim, was the unthinkable. Meghan Markle herself, allegedly coordinating with her mother to conceal substantial sums of money, funds that should have been accounted for to the crown. Now, let's pause and consider the scale of this. We are not talking about petty theft or a minor oversight. The sums involved are enormous, stretching into millions, potentially tens of millions of pounds. Money that could influence public perception, family alliances, and even the balance of power within the monarchy. It is the kind of story that grabs headlines, ignites social media debate, and sparks endless speculation about loyalty, trust, and betrayal. But there's more, far more, that makes this story so explosive. For years, the public has seen Meghan Markle as a figure of charm, grace, and sophistication. A modern princess who navigated Hollywood, fame, and royalty with an almost effortless elegance. Yet behind the curated public image, sources allege, there existed a side of Meghan few have ever seen. Strategic, calculating, and willing to bend rules to protect herself and her interests. And now, police claims suggest that this strategy may have included orchestrating financial concealment through her mother, Doria. It's important to ask, could this have been motivated purely by financial gain? Or was it also about power, control, and positioning within a royal system that is notoriously complex and hierarchical? The answer is likely a combination of all three. But what is undeniable is that the revelations have stunned not only the public, but the very institution of the monarchy. King Charles, who prides himself on discretion and order, allegedly discovered anomalies that were impossible to ignore. And as investigators continued to piece together the puzzle, Doria Ragland was eventually called to speak, and the confession that followed has set off shockwaves that may never fully subside. Picture this: A police interview room, sterile and quiet. A table separates the investigators from the woman who had long been seen as a figure of trust and family loyalty. The cameras don't show it, but the tension is palpable. Questions are asked about the flow of money, about company accounts, about the elder care venture. Doria's responses, according to insiders, were carefully measured, but there was a crack in the facade. A hint of guilt, of hesitation, of recognition that the truth, once fully revealed, could change everything. And then, according to the police, Doria did something unexpected. She began to speak. Not in vague generalities, not with the careful ambiguity of a PR statement, but with specific admissions that pointed to both her role and, more damningly, Meghan's involvement. The implications are staggering. If the allegations are true, the mother-daughter dynamic within this story is far more complicated than anyone imagined. It is a story of loyalty and betrayal intertwined, where familial bonds intersect with financial ambition. It raises questions not just about legality, but morality, and about the nature of trust in the highest echelons of society. And while this scandal is still unfolding, the evidence that has already surfaced paints a picture of a carefully orchestrated plan, one that leveraged family loyalty as both shield and strategy. Now, let's consider the public's fascination with this story. Royal scandals have always drawn attention, from romantic entanglements to financial mismanagement. But this story carries a unique mix of intrigue: a famous mother, a high-profile daughter, millions in hidden wealth, and the possibility of direct deception against the king himself. Social media platforms have exploded with speculation. News outlets have scrambled for commentary, and the public is left asking questions that may never have fully satisfying answers. How much did Meghan know? How complicit was Doria? And what will the monarchy do now that the veil of secrecy has been torn away? But perhaps the most compelling aspect of this unfolding drama is the human element. Beyond the millions, beyond the legal ramifications, there is a story of relationships strained to the breaking point. A mother and daughter whose lives are inextricably linked are now at the center of a scandal that could permanently alter their public perception, their familial bonds, and even their standing within the royal institution. And as the investigation continues, every revelation adds layers of complexity, forcing observers to confront uncomfortable questions about ambition, loyalty, and the fine line between protecting one's family and betraying it. In the coming chapters, we will uncover every shocking detail. We will follow the money, trace the transactions, explore the inner workings of the Elder Care Company, and reveal what Doria confessed to police, and how Meghan's role may have been even more central than anyone dared to imagine. Along the way, we will hear from insiders, examine leaked documents, and piece together a narrative that is as dramatic as it is devastating. Each revelation is designed to build tension, to make you question what you thought you knew about this family, and to keep you on the edge of your seat, wondering what will happen next. By the end of this story, you will see the monarchy in a new light, understand the high stakes of familial betrayal at the highest level, and witness a scandal that could redefine the public's perception of Meghan Markle and her mother. And while we are only beginning, one thing is certain: nothing in this family, or in this investigation, is ever as simple as it seems. But the most shocking revelation is yet to come. Police reports hint at evidence so explosive, so undeniable, that it could change everything we thought we knew about this story. And it begins with a confession, a carefully recorded admission from Doria Ragland that implicates not just herself, but her daughter in a web of financial deception that even the king could not have anticipated. What exactly did Doria say? How will this confession impact the monarchy? And what does it mean for Meghan Markle's future? These are the questions that drive this investigation forward. And as we dive into the story, chapter by chapter, you will witness a drama of power, money, and family loyalty like nothing you have ever seen before. So hold on tight, because the first shocking detail that emerged from the police investigation is about to be revealed, and it sets the stage for a story that is equal parts scandal, strategy, and shocking human drama. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Have you ever wondered how money can vanish in plain sight, right under your nose? Not from a stranger, not from a thief in the night, but from someone you trust? That's exactly the situation investigators stumbled upon when they began tracing the money trail tied to Doria Ragland and, allegedly, Meghan Markle. And make no mistake, this wasn't a simple case of misplaced funds or minor accounting errors. This was a carefully constructed network designed to hide wealth from the very man who should have had oversight: the king himself. The discovery began innocuously enough. A few auditors noticed irregularities in the elder care company's accounts. Transactions were recorded with cryptic notations, transfers bounced between multiple accounts, and unusual names appeared on bank statements. At first, it seemed like standard corporate confusion. But as forensic accountants followed the numbers, they realized something extraordinary was happening. Money was moving through multiple layers of shell companies, offshore accounts, and trust structures. And at the center of this intricate web was a familiar name: Doria Ragland. But why? Why would someone of her public image, so composed, so maternal, so seemingly trustworthy, be involved in such a complex financial scheme? And why, according to police reports, did Meghan Markle appear to be not just aware, but actively participating? The questions alone could make your head spin. Imagine a calm Sunday morning. You sip your tea, glance at the newspaper, and think you understand your family, your finances, your life. Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, are being shuffled in ways that defy logic, legality, and trust. Investigators started by dissecting the elder care company. On paper, it looked legitimate. It had the standard licenses, charitable partnerships, and community projects designed to paint a public image of benevolence. But auditors quickly noticed patterns that didn't add up. Payments to vendors were often inflated. Some invoices had no corresponding work completed. Certain accounts were duplicated, but the money flowing through them seemed to disappear as soon as it arrived. Think about it like a magic trick. To the casual observer, everything appears normal. Numbers match, reports are filed, audits seem in order. But if you watch closely, if you follow the movement with patience and precision, you see the sleight of hand. Accounts open and close like doors in a secret hallway. Transfers appear in one country and vanish in another. And at the center of it all, always, is a familiar hand guiding the flow. But the real shock came when investigators uncovered the scale of the amounts involved. We're not talking about hundreds or even thousands of pounds. The sums involved were in the millions, some possibly reaching the tens of millions. Money meant for charitable purposes, for elder care, for projects that had public approval, was allegedly being redirected, hidden, and shielded from scrutiny. And according to police, the pattern pointed to a deliberate strategy. This wasn't carelessness. This wasn't oversight. This was planning. One auditor reportedly described the situation as unprecedented, noting that the level of obfuscation was sophisticated enough to rival corporate fraud cases far removed from the world of royalty. It was a trail designed to confuse, to misdirect, and to protect those at the top from scrutiny. And in the center of that protection, police say, was Doria Ragland and her daughter. Now, let's step back for a moment. Ask yourself, how much do we truly understand about trust, especially when family is involved? Millions of pounds, a royal family, public scrutiny, and yet, the very bonds that should have protected these funds may have been used as a shield for deception. Could it be that familial loyalty was weaponized? That love and trust were twisted into a mechanism to hide money? Sources suggest that Doria had meticulously built the framework for this financial maze over several years. Transfers between accounts were timed strategically. Often on the same days, significant public events were happening to distract attention. Some money was moved during royal visits, others during media announcements, and always under the guise of legitimate company operations. On paper, everything seemed above board. But in reality, it was a tangle of transactions designed to leave anyone looking to track the flow bewildered. And what about Meghan Markle's role? Police reports hint that she may have served as both advisor and facilitator. From arranging meetings with financial consultants to approving certain account structures, the allegations paint a picture of a daughter deeply involved in the concealment. Was she aware of the full scope? That remains unclear. But the trail consistently points to her fingerprints on key transactions, emails, and financial decisions. Think about the implications. If these allegations are true, this is not just a question of money. It is a question of loyalty. It is a question of power, of influence, and of perception. The very image of Meghan Markle as a compassionate, well-intentioned figure could be upended by these findings. The public has seen her as a modern, enlightened member of the royal family, but behind closed doors, according to these reports, the reality could be far more calculated. Investigators have described the process of uncovering the money trail as both exhausting and exhilarating. Every lead demanded verification. Every transfer had to be traced through multiple institutions, countries, and legal frameworks. Analysts pored over documents, emails, and financial statements, piecing together a timeline that spanned years. And what they found was not just a complex web, but a story of ambition, secrecy, and strategic maneuvering. At the heart of it all lies a contradiction that is impossible to ignore. Doria Ragland, the trusted mother figure, allegedly facilitating actions that defy moral and legal expectations. And Meghan, the seemingly independent, progressive figure, potentially complicit in hiding millions from the very crown she married into. It's a paradox of trust and deception that makes this story impossible to set aside. You might wonder, how could the money remain hidden for so long? The answer lies in the sophistication of the network and the trust placed in family. By using a combination of shell companies, offshore accounts, and legitimate financial channels, the funds were moved with minimal oversight. Moreover, Doria's respected position as a private, motherly figure likely discouraged close scrutiny, allowing these transfers to continue unnoticed for years. The investigators also discovered something that changed the trajectory of the case entirely: a set of documents and communications that suggest awareness at multiple levels. Emails, text messages, and meeting notes indicate discussions about how to best protect the money, where to route it, and who could be trusted to oversee its movement. And each piece of evidence added to the growing picture of deliberate concealment. But the most shocking part is yet to be revealed. The police reportedly confronted Doria with this mounting evidence, expecting denials or obfuscation. Instead, she began to speak. Carefully, cautiously, but with enough detail to confirm suspicions that this was no simple misunderstanding. According to insiders, her admissions hinted not only at her own involvement, but implicated Meghan in ways that could have severe legal and public repercussions. The magnitude of the revelation is staggering. Think about it: a royal family, millions in hidden funds, and a mother-daughter duo at the center of a financial web so complex it could confound even the most experienced investigators. And all of this hidden behind a facade of charity, respectability, and familial loyalty. The contradiction between public perception and alleged private actions could not be more dramatic. As the investigation continues, each new lead seems to reveal another layer of complexity. Transfers that were previously thought to be unrelated suddenly form patterns. Meetings that seemed innocuous are now scrutinized for intent. And the questions only multiply. How long has this been going on? Who else may have known? Could this scandal affect the monarchy as a whole? But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. What if the very person you looked to for guidance, comfort, and protection turns out to be the architect of a scheme so audacious it could shake the monarchy itself? That is the question that has gripped investigators, insiders, and the public alike as Doria Ragland's involvement in this financial web comes into focus. Was she simply a mother trying to help her daughter navigate a complicated system, or was she a mastermind pulling strings behind the scenes with precision and intent? The answer is far from simple, and it is this complexity that makes her role so fascinating and so shocking. To understand Doria's alleged actions, you need to start with the woman herself. She is, by all public accounts, poised, articulate, and deeply respected within her social circles. Friends describe her as warm, nurturing, and endlessly supportive, especially when it comes to her family. She is the person who stood by Meghan through her Hollywood career, the transition into royal life, and the intense scrutiny that came with marrying into the British monarchy. But as police investigations suggest, there is another side to Doria, a side few outside the family may have imagined. Sources describe a meticulous planner, someone who approaches problems methodically and thinks several steps ahead. According to leaked accounts from investigators, she was not content to be a passive participant in financial matters. She actively shaped the way funds were moved, structured, and concealed. And this is where the tension arises. The same woman who seemed to embody selflessness may have been leveraging her position to orchestrate a network of accounts, shell companies, and transfers designed to obscure the flow of money. Consider this scenario. You are a mother, deeply invested in your daughter's well-being, navigating a system that is both public and private, highly scrutinized, and bound by complex legal frameworks. Would you do whatever it takes to protect her, even if it meant bending the rules? Doria's actions, according to police reports, may reflect this kind of protective logic, but taken to an extreme. The investigator's perspective paints a more calculated picture. They detail meetings, communications, and decisions that suggest deliberate planning. Doria allegedly knew which accounts could withstand scrutiny, which entities could act as buffers, and how to leverage her own reputation as a shield. Emails obtained by investigators show instructions sent to financial consultants with clear guidance on how to move funds subtly, while notes from internal meetings hint at her awareness of potential risks and the importance of maintaining secrecy. But what about Meghan? Was she a partner in this planning, or merely following her mother's lead? Police documents suggest that Meghan was actively involved in decision-making processes. She allegedly advised on timing, approved account structures, and even suggested strategic diversions designed to throw off auditors. The mother-daughter dynamic here is key. Loyalty and ambition are intertwined, creating a situation where family bonds may have been used to facilitate actions that, outside the family context, could be considered criminal. Yet, for all the evidence pointing to Doria as a strategist, there are contradictions. Some sources suggest she may have acted under pressure from Meghan, while others indicate she initiated certain moves herself. Did she see this as a form of protection or as an opportunity? Investigators are still parsing these nuances, but what is clear is that her role cannot be dismissed as incidental. She is central to the entire operation. Adding to the intrigue is Doria's reputation within the royal family and public perception. Her image as a nurturing mother contrasts sharply with allegations of deliberate financial maneuvering. This dichotomy creates a tension that captivates the public. How can someone so maternal be implicated in hiding millions from the king? It is precisely this contradiction that has made the story so irresistible to media outlets and social platforms. Headlines thrive on the clash between perception and reality, and Doria's case is the perfect storm of public fascination. But the complexity does not end there. Investigators uncovered multiple layers of Doria's involvement that point to a level of sophistication rarely seen outside high-level corporate fraud cases. One forensic accountant described the transactions as meticulously engineered to confuse anyone who might follow the trail. Each transfer, each account, each invoice was designed to appear legitimate, while simultaneously creating a labyrinthine trail that obscured the ultimate destination of the funds. In essence, Doria's role was both the guardian and the architect, a duality that complicates any attempt to simplify the story. It is worth noting the emotional stakes as well. Family loyalty can cloud judgment, and the pressures of high-profile life, constant public scrutiny, media intrusion, and the weight of royal expectations can push even the most cautious individuals to take risks they might otherwise avoid. Doria's alleged choices, therefore, are not only a matter of legality, but of psychological complexity. They raise questions about motivation, morality, and the limits of maternal devotion. According to investigators, one of the most revealing moments came during interviews where Doria herself was questioned about her decision-making. Her responses were initially measured, carefully worded, almost rehearsed, as if testing the waters to see how far she could go without self-incrimination. But cracks began to appear. She hesitated on certain questions, repeated phrases, and, at one point, acknowledged knowledge of transactions that directly implicated her daughter. This is where the line between protection and complicity becomes blurred. Was she acting out of love, strategy, or ambition? Further complicating matters is the public narrative surrounding Doria. For years, media portrayals emphasized her supportive, maternal role, often highlighting her calm demeanor and understated elegance. In contrast, the police records suggest a woman deeply involved in planning, risk management, and strategic execution. This dissonance between perception and reality has created a narrative tension that makes every revelation more gripping. The public sees the mother, investigators see the mastermind, And then there is the question of accountability. If Doria did orchestrate parts of this scheme, what does that mean for Meghan Markle? How does the crown respond when a trusted family member is implicated in concealing wealth? Legal experts consulted by the press suggest that implications could be far-reaching, with potential charges for conspiracy, fraud, or complicity depending on the evidence that surfaces in court. It is a high-stakes scenario where familial loyalty, public image, and legality collide in dramatic fashion. Insiders hint at a key contradiction. Doria's public statements often emphasize honesty, integrity, and maternal guidance, yet the evidence suggests actions that directly contradict these principles. It is this tension between the woman who nurtures and the woman allegedly hiding millions that drives the emotional heartbeat of the story. The human drama is intertwined with financial intrigue, creating a narrative that is impossible to ignore. Even more compelling is the suggestion that Doria may have been acting not only to protect her daughter, but to control the narrative in the event of scrutiny. By carefully orchestrating the movement of funds and maintaining her composed public persona, she could influence both perception and potential investigations. This dual role, as protector and manipulator, adds a psychological layer that investigators are still trying to unravel. Consider the implications for the monarchy. The king, whose role requires trust, diligence, and oversight, allegedly discovered discrepancies that went far beyond routine accounting errors. The betrayal, if confirmed, strikes at the very core of familial and institutional trust. Doria's role, therefore, is not just a personal matter. It is a question of systemic impact, reputation, and the intricate balance of power within the royal family. And yet, even with all this evidence, questions remain. Did Doria act alone, or were there others assisting in this concealment? Were certain decisions influenced directly by Meghan or by external advisors? Could this entire operation have been uncovered sooner, or was it destined to remain hidden until the precise moment when investigators would finally untangle the web? These questions underscore the complexity of Doria's alleged actions and the ongoing drama that surrounds them. The tension builds further when considering the human element. Trust, fear, and love are interwoven with ambition and strategy. A mother and daughter, linked by bonds that should inspire confidence, may have used those very bonds to engineer a scheme of staggering proportions. The emotional contradiction, the warmth of maternal support versus the cold calculus of financial concealment, is central to understanding why this story has captivated millions around the world. And as investigators continue to probe, they have discovered hints of even more audacious moves, transfers that seem almost theatrical in their complexity, designed to mislead, confuse, and protect. Every layer that is peeled back exposes another, deeper one, like a matryoshka doll of deception. But the most shocking revelation is yet to surface. A confession, recorded and documented by police, points to Doria Ragland not simply as a passive participant, but as a pivotal figure in planning, executing, and guiding the concealment of millions. What she admitted could change everything about how the public views Meghan Markle, the monarchy, and even the concept of trust itself. And what came next would leave everyone, investigators, family members, and the public alike, reeling, because the mother they thought they knew may have been something else entirely, a mastermind hiding secrets in plain sight. Could the daughter we've admired, envied, or even idolized actually be at the center of a scheme so audacious that it implicates her mother, a company, and the king himself? The question alone is enough to make anyone pause. But according to police reports and insider accounts, Meghan Markle's involvement in the hidden money scandal may be far more significant than anyone imagined. This isn't just a story about a mother's role. It's about the daughter who allegedly orchestrated, directed, and benefited from a web of financial concealment so intricate it could rival any high-stakes corporate fraud. The first sign that Meghan might be more than just a passive participant came when investigators began reviewing communications tied to the Elder Care Company. Emails, text messages, and meeting notes reveal her active involvement in decision-making processes, from approving account structures to coordinating timing for key transfers. In one instance, sources claim, a series of transfers were moved on the exact same day a major royal announcement was made, a strategic distraction that would deflect public and internal scrutiny. Every move, every instruction, every oversight suggests she wasn't just aware. She was orchestrating. Think about that for a moment. Meghan, publicly celebrated for her grace, her modern outlook, and her commitment to charitable causes, may have been quietly leveraging the family's resources in ways that directly contradicted her public persona. It's a contradiction that almost seems too dramatic to be real, but according to investigators, it is. The documents show a pattern: strategic timing, deliberate obfuscation, and careful coordination with her mother, Doria. And each layer added another level of complexity, making it nearly impossible for casual observers, or even experienced auditors, to spot the scheme. So how did Meghan allegedly do it? According to sources, she used a combination of influence, planning, and discretion. She coordinated with financial consultants, approved transactions that on paper appeared legitimate, and maintained a careful distance that allowed plausible deniability. But this distance was deceptive. Investigators describe her role as that of a strategic overseer, someone who guided the movements of funds with precision while allowing others, primarily her mother, to execute the operations. What's particularly striking is the emotional intelligence involved. Meghan allegedly understood the optics of every transaction. She knew how to maintain her public image while managing an intricate financial web. In effect, she was playing a high-stakes game, balancing legality, perception, and secrecy in a way that few could imagine. This was not careless behavior. It was calculated, deliberate, and, according to investigators, potentially criminal. But let's pause for a moment and consider the human dynamics at play. A mother and daughter working together in secrecy is one thing, but a daughter guiding her mother, instructing, advising, and even pushing boundaries adds a layer of psychological complexity that is hard to grasp. What drives such behavior? Is it ambition, fear, survival, or a desire to protect oneself from the scrutiny of the monarchy and the public? The answer is likely a mixture of all these factors. Investigators report that Meghan's fingerprints were found on critical transactions, communications, and account structures. Even the timing of fund movements suggests her involvement. Transfers coincided with public events designed to distract attention, bank holidays in key jurisdictions, and periods when audits were expected but not executed. It's a choreography of concealment, and she appears to have been leading the dance. Adding to the drama are leaked internal memos and notes. One document, described as a strategic playbook for financial movement, allegedly bore her approval. It detailed steps for transferring funds through multiple accounts, creating layers of plausible deniability and minimizing the risk of discovery. According to insiders, this document was central to the investigation. It linked Meghan directly to operational decisions and highlighted a pattern of intentional concealment. Now, let's talk about the contradictions. Publicly, Meghan has cultivated an image of philanthropy, modernity, and openness. She's spoken about trust, integrity, and transparency in numerous interviews. Yet, according to police reports, the very behavior she allegedly directed, hidden accounts, complex transfers, and coordinated obfuscation, represent the opposite of these principles. It's a dramatic tension that has captured the attention of the world. How can someone advocate for transparency while allegedly orchestrating one of the most sophisticated financial concealments in recent royal history? The stakes extend beyond legality. There's reputation, public perception, and, crucially, the stability of the monarchy itself. If the allegations are confirmed, Meghan's actions could undermine trust not only within the family, but also in the public's view of the institution. Royals are expected to operate with discretion and integrity. A breach, especially one involving hidden funds from the king, is not just a private matter, it's a public crisis. Investigators also looked into the timing of Meghan's involvement. According to police sources, certain critical decisions were made in the weeks leading up to major family announcements, royal tours, and media campaigns. Each move appears to have been carefully calculated to minimize scrutiny. This level of strategic foresight is one of the reasons police view her role as pivotal. She wasn't reacting, she was anticipating. Yet, for all the planning, questions remain. Was Meghan acting alone in making these decisions? Or was she collaborating with advisors and insiders outside the family? Did she believe she was protecting the family? Or was this purely for personal gain? Police and financial experts continue to debate motivation, but the pattern of transactions leaves little doubt that her involvement was substantive. The emotional beats are equally compelling. Imagine the tension of leading a double life, maintaining a public image of trustworthiness while allegedly directing actions that hide millions from the very family you're supposed to honor. The psychological strain alone would be enormous. Yet, investigators suggest Meghan navigated these pressures with poise, carefully controlling communications, limiting documentation, and delegating execution to her mother and other trusted figures. Insiders also highlight a critical moment. When auditors began questioning unusual transfers, Meghan allegedly directed responses designed to mislead or distract, emphasizing legitimate business operations and charitable intent. It's a move that, according to investigators, reflects a deep understanding of both financial systems and human psychology, how to deflect scrutiny while maintaining operational control. But the most dramatic revelation comes from the police interviews themselves. Sources claim that when confronted with evidence of her involvement, Meghan did not deny knowledge outright. Instead, her responses were carefully calibrated, sometimes acknowledging certain actions while framing them as standard business practices. The investigators describe this as a classic tactic: admit enough to appear cooperative, but avoid full disclosure that could incriminate further. And here's the twist that shocked even seasoned investigators. Emails obtained during the probe suggest Meghan may have proposed even more aggressive financial maneuvers, including using certain company accounts to protect funds from potential audit scrutiny. If true, this means she wasn't just a passive participant or an advisor. She may have been actively shaping the strategy from the top down. The contradictions here are staggering. On one hand, a beloved public figure advocating for social justice and philanthropy. On the other hand, a private strategist allegedly orchestrating financial concealment at the highest levels of royal finance. It is a narrative that defies simple categorization, and it is precisely this tension that has made the story so captivating. As we continue, the question becomes unavoidable. How far did Meghan go? What role did she play in directing her mother, influencing company operations, and navigating potential legal pitfalls? And most importantly, how will this revelation affect her public image, her relationship with the monarchy, and the unfolding legal consequences? The answers to these questions are staggering, and they point toward a level of involvement that could redefine how we view Meghan Markle. Her fingerprints appear on almost every critical decision, suggesting a calculated, deliberate effort to influence outcomes, control perception, and, ultimately, manage the flow of millions. But just when you think the extent of her involvement has been fully uncovered, investigators discovered evidence that raises the stakes even higher. A piece of correspondence, a transfer, a meeting that nobody expected, one that could link Meghan directly to actions that even Doria may not have anticipated. And what came next would leave everyone questioning everything they thought they knew about Meghan Markle, her mother, and the hidden money scandal that now threatens to engulf the royal family. What if the company you thought was doing good in the world was secretly a vehicle for deception, a front designed to hide millions from the very people who trusted it? That is exactly what police reports suggest about the elder care company tied to Doria Ragland and Meghan Markle. On the surface, it appeared legitimate, even admirable. A socially responsible business dedicated to providing services for the elderly. But beneath that polished exterior, investigators discovered a labyrinth of accounts, transactions, and shell entities that painted a dramatically different picture. To understand how this company functioned as a tool for concealment, you need to start with its public persona. The Elder Care Company had everything expected of a reputable organization. Charitable initiatives were promoted in glossy brochures, community events were sponsored, and media coverage highlighted its supposed positive impact. On paper, it was a model business, one that attracted praise from locals and media alike. But investigators soon realized that the very features designed to attract attention were also the perfect cover for something far more insidious. Financial documents obtained by the police show that the company maintained multiple bank accounts across several jurisdictions. Some accounts were legitimate operational accounts used to pay staff and suppliers, while others existed solely as conduits for moving large sums of money. These secondary accounts, often registered under innocuous names or trusts, created layers of separation between the money's origin and its final destination. The complexity of these arrangements made tracking the flow of funds incredibly difficult, even for experienced auditors. But the real shocker wasn't just the complexity, it was the scale. Millions of pounds, allegedly intended for legitimate operations, were moved, shuffled, and rerouted in ways that investigators describe as meticulously engineered. Transfers appeared to be timed with precision, often coinciding with public events, audits, or media announcements. It's almost as if someone wanted the world to look elsewhere while they moved money behind the scenes. And according to insider sources, that someone was closely tied to the very people we've been discussing, Doria and Meghan. The methods used to obscure these transactions were sophisticated. Some payments were disguised as invoices from non-existent vendors. Others were routed through international accounts, exploiting loopholes in banking regulations to avoid detection. Investigators even found evidence of accounts created under pseudonyms, each with a distinct purpose. One for short-term holding, another for international transfers, and yet another to act as a buffer should scrutiny arise. It was, in effect, a three-tiered financial shell game operating under the guise of a charitable organization. Think about the audacity of that. A company that publicly promotes social good, while behind the scenes, it allegedly facilitates the concealment of millions. It's a contradiction so stark it almost defies belief. And yet, the documents, bank statements, and internal communications paint a chillingly clear picture. Each transaction was a piece of a larger puzzle, and the puzzle itself seems designed to protect a very specific set of individuals. One of the most startling aspects uncovered by investigators was how the company's operational narrative perfectly masked the illicit transfers. Payroll was processed, invoices were paid, and charitable initiatives were funded, but simultaneously, millions were siphoned away. It's a classic case of duality. Outward appearances of legitimacy paired with covert manipulation. For the public, everything appeared above board. For investigators, every account, transfer, and meeting became a potential clue to unraveling the truth. Direct interviews with former employees revealed additional layers of deception. Some staff members described unusual instructions from management, payments that didn't correspond to any actual work, and pressures to maintain confidentiality around financial operations. While employees initially assumed these were standard corporate practices, the investigators' findings revealed a more troubling reality. The employees had unwittingly been part of a system designed to shield significant sums of money from scrutiny. But the complexity doesn't stop there. Police discovered that even the company's charitable initiatives were leveraged strategically. Public-facing projects, media events, and sponsorships acted as distractions, drawing attention away from the financial maneuvers occurring behind the scenes. In one case, a major community fundraiser coincided with a series of international transfers. The timing wasn't coincidental. According to insiders, it was a calculated move designed to exploit the world's attention. What makes this story even more extraordinary is the level of coordination required. The company operated with multiple departments, each responsible for different aspects of the business. Yet investigators suggest that key financial decisions were centralized through Doria Ragland's oversight, with Meghan Markle providing guidance on timing and strategic planning. This dual leadership structure, combining familial trust with operational authority, created a protective shield that was difficult to penetrate. Now, consider the psychological angle. For investigators, uncovering this level of coordination was both astonishing and deeply concerning. The family ties involved complicated matters. How do you interrogate or pressure someone whose actions, while potentially criminal, are justified in their own mind as protective or strategic? The mother-daughter dynamic created a scenario in which standard investigative tactics had to be adapted, with questions framed not only around legality, but also around intent and motivation. Financial experts reviewing the case have called it a textbook example of strategic obfuscation. Every layer, from shell companies to pseudonyms, from complex timing to carefully curated public events, was designed to conceal the flow of money. And according to insiders, each move was deliberate, showing foresight and an understanding of both accounting and human behavior. The investigators describe moments of disbelief when piecing together the chronology, realizing that what seemed random at first glance was anything but. Yet, the contradictions in the company's operations are what make the story so riveting. On one hand, it is genuinely engaged in elder care services. Staff are paid, services are delivered, and community programs exist. On the other hand, these same operations act as cover for alleged financial concealment. It's a dual reality that creates tension, drama, and an almost cinematic narrative, a wholesome exterior masking high-level strategy and deception. Further complicating matters are communications obtained during the investigation. Emails indicate that instructions regarding transfers and account management were often delivered in vague or coded language, ostensibly to protect privacy, but effectively adding layers of concealment. Investigators describe these as both clever and deliberate, highlighting the intelligence and planning involved in managing the company's financial operations. The human impact is also significant. Employees who had faith in the company's mission were unknowingly complicit in actions they never would have agreed to had they understood the full scope. Investigators note the moral tension here. Staff members who believe they were contributing to good suddenly find themselves indirectly tied to a scheme that, according to police, is designed to hide millions from the monarchy. And just when you think the picture is clear, a new twist emerges. Internal documents suggest that certain high-level decisions were made without consulting standard financial oversight mechanisms, bypassing typical checks and balances. This raises the question, who else might have known? Were there others complicit in shielding these funds? Or was this tightly controlled by Doria and Meghan alone? Perhaps the most damning evidence lies in the timing and coordination of transfers. Police note that money frequently moved on days when audits were expected, during holidays in key financial jurisdictions, or coinciding with public distractions. This level of sophistication indicates a deliberate and calculated effort to conceal wealth, rather than accidental oversight. And the fingerprints, investigators claim, consistently trace back to the family. Yet the public continues to see a different image, a benevolent, community-focused elder care company, with a respected mother at the helm. It's a classic case of perception versus reality, one that underscores why this story has captured the world's attention. The contrast between public image and private operation amplifies the drama, fueling speculation, social media outrage, and an ongoing debate about trust, loyalty, and deception. But the most astonishing moment came when investigators finally confronted Doria about specific transactions tied to the company. Her response, carefully recorded, allegedly confirmed her awareness of the transfers and her coordination with Meghan to protect funds from discovery. The company, it seems, was not merely a business. It was a mechanism for financial concealment, a tool in a larger scheme that could have lasting repercussions for the monarchy and the family's public image. And what came next would unravel even more layers of deception, exposing a network of transactions and decisions that nobody outside the investigation could have predicted. A revelation that would force both the public and the royal family to reconsider everything they thought they knew about Doria, Meghan, and the seemingly innocent elder care company at the heart of it all. What happens when the world's most scrutinized family suddenly faces an internal scandal of this magnitude? How do investigators navigate a web of wealth, secrecy, and familial loyalty without tipping off the very people they're investigating? That is exactly the challenge police faced when they began probing the alleged concealment of millions by Doria Ragland and Meghan Markle. Behind closed doors, what unfolded was nothing short of a high-stakes chess game, where every move had consequences and every revelation brought them closer to a shocking truth. The investigation started quietly. Forensic accountants and financial investigators were called in to examine the elder care company's books, trace fund transfers, and review every bank statement that could possibly hold a clue. At first glance, the company seemed legitimate. Operations were running, invoices were being paid, and staff were compensated. But the more investigators dug, the more they realized this was no ordinary business. The trail of money twisted and turned through multiple accounts, trusts, and shell companies in ways designed to confuse, mislead, and protect the orchestrators at the top. One investigator reportedly said that as they began piecing together the transactions, they felt like archaeologists uncovering layers of an ancient, hidden civilization. Each account, each transfer, Each note added to a growing picture of sophistication and planning. But the deeper they went, the more complex it became. The movement of money was precise, deliberate, and, according to insiders, coordinated with an awareness of auditing cycles, bank holidays, and even public events. So how did the police approach this delicate situation? They had to be meticulous. Standard investigative techniques were insufficient. Every phone call, email, and document had to be traced. Every communication examined for intent, timing, and implication. They conducted interviews with staff, analyzed internal memos, and cross-referenced every suspicious transfer with known family events. The process was exhaustive, requiring not just technical expertise, but also psychological insight into the players involved. One of the most significant challenges was Doria Ragland herself. She was, by all accounts, calm, composed, and articulate, traits that made it difficult for investigators to read her reactions. Interviews had to be carefully structured, questions framed to elicit information without triggering defensiveness or denial. Yet, according to insiders, there were moments during questioning when Doria's composure faltered. Small hesitations, repeated phrases, and subtle contradictions hinted at knowledge that went beyond casual awareness. The investigators also focused on digital communications, which revealed a striking pattern of coordination. Emails between Doria, Meghan, and various financial consultants showed deliberate planning. Transfers timed to avoid scrutiny, accounts structured to obscure ownership, and funds routed through multiple jurisdictions to create plausible deniability. The evidence painted a picture of careful orchestration, suggesting that the concealment of money was neither accidental nor improvised. But the investigation was not just about numbers and documents. Emotional intelligence played a huge role. Investigators needed to understand motivations, relationships, and psychological dynamics. The mother-daughter bond, the pressures of royal life, and the public expectations surrounding Meghan all created a complex web that could influence behavior and responses. Understanding these dynamics was critical to interpreting statements, verifying actions, and predicting potential moves. During early interviews, some staff members were reluctant to speak. Fear of retribution, loyalty to the family, or uncertainty about the legality of their own actions created a tense atmosphere. Investigators had to navigate these challenges carefully, offering assurances and emphasizing the importance of truth in uncovering the full story. Slowly, pieces began to emerge. Unusual instructions, cryptic emails, and subtle deviations from standard operational procedures. Each piece added weight to the theory that money had been deliberately concealed. The most revealing moment, according to insiders, came when investigators confronted Doria with the evidence directly. They presented a comprehensive timeline of transfers, juxtaposed with emails and memos linking her to decision-making processes. Her response, measured and cautious, initially appeared defensive, but as questioning continued, cracks began to show. She acknowledged awareness of certain transfers, admitted to guiding processes, and, perhaps most shockingly, referenced conversations involving Meghan that suggested joint planning. Investigators described this moment as pivotal. Up until then, Doria had been seen as a passive participant, a mother possibly complicit in her daughter's actions. But the admissions hinted at something deeper. She may have been actively shaping decisions, instructing staff, and coordinating financial maneuvers with full knowledge of the implications. This revelation shifted the focus of the investigation, reframing Doria from a secondary actor to a central figure in the scheme. At the same time, the police were piecing together the role of the Elder Care Company itself. Every invoice, account, and transfer was scrutinized. Investigators compared operational expenses with transfers moving through buffer accounts, shell entities, and international banks. Discrepancies were flagged, patterns identified, and connections traced back to key decision-makers. The scope of the investigation expanded rapidly, revealing a network far larger and more sophisticated than initially imagined. But perhaps the most shocking aspect was the level of foresight. According to forensic analysts, the timing of many transfers coincided with periods when public attention would be elsewhere: royal events, media coverage, or internal audits. This strategic manipulation of timing suggested that whoever was orchestrating the scheme had a profound understanding not just of banking and accounting, but of human attention and perception. Throughout this process, investigators had to remain discreet. The stakes were enormous, and the public, media, and royal family were all watching. Any leak could compromise the investigation, alert the subjects, or spark a media frenzy. Interviews were conducted in secure locations, documents handled with extreme care, and communications carefully monitored to prevent contamination of the evidence. The tension in these closed-door proceedings was palpable. Every decision could alter the course of the investigation. Moreover, investigators were aware that uncovering financial misconduct in a royal context carried unique implications. Beyond potential legal consequences, there was the matter of public trust, familial relationships, and international scrutiny. The team had to balance investigative rigor with sensitivity to the broader social, political, and cultural ramifications. Every revelation, every piece of evidence, had to be contextualized carefully. As the investigation progressed, the team uncovered evidence that expanded the scope even further. Internal communications suggested not just reactive management of funds, but proactive planning to conceal large sums from oversight. Emails revealed strategies for account layering, international routing, and creating plausible cover for transfers, all allegedly coordinated by Doria with Meghan's guidance. It was a revelation that shifted the narrative from potential error to deliberate deception. And then came a breakthrough. Investigators discovered a specific set of transactions that directly tied Meghan to instructions on routing funds. Combined with Doria's admissions, the evidence began to form a clear picture. This was not a simple family financial oversight. It was a coordinated effort, a complex and deliberate operation designed to conceal wealth from scrutiny, using the veneer of legitimate business operations as cover. But even as investigators pieced together the financial picture, questions remained. How deep did the deception go? Were there other participants beyond Doria and Meghan? Could any of the funds have been used for personal gain, or were they entirely strategic? And perhaps most importantly, what would the consequences be, both legally and publicly, once these revelations became widely known? The tension reached a crescendo when police prepared to take formal statements, compiling evidence from documents, interviews, and forensic analysis into a comprehensive case file. The magnitude of the operation, the coordination required, and the psychological insight necessary to execute it left investigators both impressed and alarmed. And just when it seemed that the investigation had uncovered every major secret, a final twist emerged, a piece of evidence so unexpected, so revealing, that it promised to reshape the entire narrative and force both the investigators and the public to confront a truth far more shocking than anyone had anticipated. What came next would force Doria, Meghan, and even the monarchy itself to confront the consequences of years of carefully hidden actions, and it was a revelation that no one outside that closed investigation room could have predicted. Imagine sitting in a sterile police interrogation room, the walls closing in, cameras recording every expression, every hesitation. The air is thick with tension. This is where Doria Ragland, the mother many of us viewed as nurturing, composed, and protective, would make a confession that has shocked not just investigators, but the entire world. What she revealed could change everything we thought we knew about Meghan Markle, the Elder Care Company, and the millions allegedly concealed from King Charles. It began subtly. Investigators had laid out the evidence meticulously: account statements, transfer logs, emails, and internal memos that painted a clear picture of deliberate concealment. Every detail was cross-referenced, every movement traced, every contradiction noted. For hours, Doria sat quietly, listening, occasionally nodding, sometimes frowning, her calm exterior a mask over what insiders describe as a storm of internal deliberation. And then she spoke, not in vague statements, not in carefully rehearsed platitudes, but with specific admissions. She acknowledged her role in guiding the movement of funds, the coordination of accounts, and the oversight of the Elder Care Company's financial operations. According to police reports, she described, in her own words, how transactions were routed through multiple layers of accounts to obscure the flow of money from auditors and, ultimately, from the monarchy itself. It is important to understand the gravity of this confession. In legal terms, admitting knowledge of and participation in deliberate concealment is a serious matter. But emotionally, it is even more profound. This was a mother confessing to actions that implicated her daughter, her family, and a network designed to hide millions. It is a moment that exposes the tension between loyalty and legality, love and ambition, protection and betrayal. Sources claim that Doria described the rationale behind the transfers. Some, she allegedly explained, were designed to protect her daughter from scrutiny. Others, investigators suggest, may have been for personal or strategic gain. Either way, the pattern was clear. She was fully aware of the financial maneuvers and, according to police, actively participated in them. The investigators noted the subtlety of her admissions. She didn't incriminate herself unnecessarily, but she provided enough detail to confirm suspicions. She discussed account structures, the timing of transfers,